Where is he getting the standard to judge the God of the Bible by then if he's an atheist? My point is he can't do otherwise, because he's still, even though he's an atheist, he's still a human being made in the image of God, and there are things that are built into him, like morality, that are going to come out even when it contradicts his worldview.
You also talk about how you believe Christianity is the best way of making sense of the real world. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with my daughter, Annabeth, when she was about 8 years old, and she said, "Papa, why do we believe God is true?" is the way she put it. And now I got to answer this question that I answer a lot of times for adults, but now I got my 8-year-old, and I'm thinking about, how can I put this? And all of a sudden this thought occurred to me, and I realized this really captured my entire approach to this project of making the case for Christianity. And what I told her is, honey, the reason that we believe God is true is because he's the best explanation for the way things are. The reason we believe God is real, that Christianity is true, it's the accurate view of reality, is because it's the best explanation for the way things are. And what I'm getting at there is that we have access to the world, and there's all kinds of things that we know about the world, even without the Bible, obviously. And many of these things, I think, are built into us. I talk about this in the tactics book, and the inside-out tactic. God has built things inside of us that come out that reveal the truth about the world and about Christianity, and we can trade on that, and I talk about how to do that. But when we start asking the fundamental questions, why does it seem that human beings have value above other creatures? Some people are confused on that nowadays, but most people aren't. Why does it seem that what accounts for the origin of the universe? Pretty much everybody believes that the universe came into existence at some time in the past. What caused that? All right. Why are certain things wrong and other things right?
Yeah.
And it's not just a matter of personal opinion. Where does morality come from? Well, these are all questions that we always ask because they're real features of the world that we, in a certain sense, bump into. Okay, problem of evil is an example of that. We bump into morality there. It turns out that, as I've explained to my daughter, that the Christian worldview, with God making human beings special, God being the standard of morality for the universe, which explains why there could be a problem of evil in the first place. All of these things fit in our worldview really well. So this is what I mean by it's the best explanation for the way things are. It has explanatory power about the most important things that we know about the world even before we open the Bible.
Greg, you've been running Stand to Reason and a radio show for decades now. Yeah. As you look back over all of the interviews and the discussions and the debates that you've had, are there any memorable moments that really stand out to you and say, wow, I remember this one particular interview where something significant happened? That was maybe a landmark moment for the ministry or something that just impacted you specifically?
Well, there are two categories for that. I haven't really thought about that so much, but now I do. There are two categories. One of them is when people call in and they say, I've read the books, I've listened to the podcast, or the radio show, or they've availed themselves of the kinds of material that Stand to Reason provide, and this radically changed my life. In fact, that's the comment that I get most frequently from the tactics book. This changed my life. And that's humbling, but it's deeply gratifying because I like to make an impact. And so I hear that kind of thing a lot. It's feedback, and I am paying it forward in other people's lives, all right? So that's one category. People say, thanks, I'm moving forward with it, helping others with it. Second category is when I'm talking to somebody who does not agree with me. Like an atheist, and I'll get people that are atheists that call in, and just recently I got raked over the coals by, let me back up and put it this way. Just recently I got critiqued by an atheist before his 500,000 followers, all right? What was interesting about that conversation is that he was denying particular things that are part of a Christian worldview. If you're an atheist, all right, then there is no basis for morality, objective morality, absolute morality, if you will, because there's no moral law maker. It's just molecules in motion. Now, for the sake of discussion, that may be the way things are, all right? And therefore, the only thing that we have is our personal opinions that might change over time or might have been created by Darwinian evolution or something like that. But that's all you're left with, okay? And that's his world. That was his view, actually. And he is critiquing me as a theist of promoting objective morality. But in his critique, he kept saying things like, Koukl, you are harming atheists. Well, is harming atheists actually bad?
In an atheist worldview.
In an atheist worldview, how could it be bad? Now, why is he saying that? Now, I don't think I am harming atheists, all right? No. But that he would raise the objection shows that he is actually operating according to the principles of an objectivist morality. There is right and wrong, and Koukl's doing wrong.
That's
okay?
right.
But that belongs in our worldview.
Koukl, you're crossing a moral line right now by what you're doing, yet there is no moral line drawer in his worldview.
Exactly, exactly. Sometimes when people complain about the God of the Bible, as Richard Dawkins did in his book, The God Delusion, he's got a whole paragraph of adjectives describing this terrible God. But in other writings, Dawkins will say there is no evil, there is no good, there is nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. Okay, well, that's his naturalism talking there. Where is he getting the standard to judge the God of the Bible by then if he's an atheist? My point is he can't do otherwise because he's still, even though he's an atheist, he's still a human being made in the image of God. And there are things that are built into him, like morality, that are going to come out even when it contradicts his worldview. So some of the precious moments that I've had on the air is when atheists, in a certain sense, speak the truth of the Christian worldview while they're trying to refute it. That's precious. And I have an opportunity to try to exploit that mistake in my conversations with them.
How do you help people communicate the Christian message of the gospel in a generation that seems to be moving further and further away from the idea of absolute truth?
Yeah. Well, there's a shell game going on here, Kirk. It's a very important question. And the shell game is people do not believe in absolute or objective truth when it suits them. But when it doesn't suit them to promote relativism, then they become objectivists, just like the case of the atheists I was talking about, okay? People like to have their own set of rules and their own ideas about truth, my truth, your truth, whatever. But when somebody else's truth interferes with their truth, then they raise objections. Okay,
and so what's it going to appeal to some sort of an objective standard that cancels them out?
We're back into the same circumstance that I was talking about earlier. I think the reason that people are so into this now is because you have a massive cultural forces that are encouraging it. Okay, this mistake goes back to the garden. Okay, in the garden it was, I don't want God, I don't want his rules. I want to see what I like to see, what looks that it's good for tasting, it looks good. I mean, all this is in the garden. All the subjectivistic things, so I'm going to satisfy my own desires. Well, now that's been institutionalized in every outlet of media just about in the entire country. It's the same fallen nature, Kirk, that is self-centered. But now it's been, as I said, institutionalized. Think of the slogan of this age, you do you. You do you. So I think what's happened isn't so much that people have really gotten away from finding truth, because we're looking for truth all the time, and we believe in objective truth. In fact, if we couldn't know the truth about the world in certain important ways, we'd be dead in a day. So we're always doing that, looking for truth. We deny truth when it's inconvenient for us, and especially when it satisfies our personal desires. You do you. Then, all bets are off. I'm the center stage. But that's not new. That goes back to the garden. Genesis chapter 3.